With breaking news and political commentary from a public servant, serial entrepreneur, community leader, philanthropist, and American patriot, and a darn nice guy. It's time for the GrassRoots TruthCast and your host, Gene Valentino.
Hi, friends. Gene Valentino, and welcome to another episode of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. You know, we do these episodes right here in our airplane hangar, a few times during the year when we have special guests in and around the area that can find their way here. I have Dr. William Lyle with me today, obstetrics and gynecology, and we're going to do a deep dive on something that's been sensitive to me over the years, the abortion, or more specifically, the right to life. The right to life issue at the local, state, and federal levels. We've got just the guy to get into this conversation with you, with me. He's taken an approach, which is why I've asked him to come here today. It's not only a science medically based approach, but we're going to be talking about the spirituality of the issue as well. You know, science is a funny thing, you know. Where does the science and objectivity, the scientific method of issues and research, design, development, and application of the science, where does it leave off, and where does spirituality begin? Is there a difference? Is there an overlap? We're going to find out about today's Gen Z crowd and the rest of America's opinion, especially since the Dobbs decision, on this thing we've called right to life and how we've handled it. We've got a great guy who's going to be with us, 25 years in obstetrics and gynecology, just in Pensacola, Florida area alone. We're going to have a longer talk on this issue right after this.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Welcome back to our episode. We're going to be breaking away for a few videos from Dr. Lyle as well. But before we do, Dr. Lyle, thank you for joining me. I'm so glad to have you here in the man cave, the hangar. This is where we have some real great discussions. And folks, Dr. Lyle comes to us with a background and I think the issue more is to do with approach and how we deal with right to life locally and under the federal rules as well. Dr. Lyle, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here in the hangar.
You know, I remember running for Congress, and I remember being in the audience when you were being awarded a wonderful honor. I think it was at Marcus Point Baptist Church.
It was actually at Olive Baptist Church. The God and Government Award, an annual award here in Pensacola region.
Yeah, and this is where you were honored by the community for your work. It was the honoring of your work in a sensitive area, nonetheless, but you were marrying up the science of life to the spirituality of life. Can you explain that?
Well, when it comes to the issue of abortion, I mean, this is a spiritual battle. There are, in the United States, over 1.1 million abortions each year, which is up since the Dobbs decision 3 years ago. But in Genesis 1:26, God said, "Let us make man in our image." Well, when are we created in that image of God? We're created in the image of God at the moment of conception. Even the Declaration of Independence says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator, and that's a capital C, Creator, with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So life is precious. This is a governmental issue. This is a spiritual issue. This is a scientific issue. This is a medical issue. And it really comes down to patients' rights. Not just the moms as the patients, but the babies in the womb as patients as well.
So, when I was running for Congress and you were interviewing me, I remember getting challenged with a very serious question. The question had to do with abortion and what my take was on it. Of course, as a politician, I was looking for your support. But the truth of the matter is, our paths were aligned. When does life begin? To me, life begins unequivocally at the point of conception, the moment those cells come together, and it's called a zygote, or it becomes a human being under the constitutional political definition you described. But, you know, people have a tendency to get in the way of the obvious. And to me, that simple narrative, that indisputable narrative, is something that you've been dealing with on several fronts. I'll save the folks some time. One of the things I found very interesting about Dr. Lyle is he buys an abortion clinic to stop the abortion from occurring at that location.
Yes.
When did that happen?
It was 1999, and I had just finished my residency training with the University of Florida, and a practice that was available was the largest abortion clinic here on the Florida Gulf Coast. So we took over that practice in 1999. We told all the staff they were welcome to stay. We had the former abortionist sign a non-compete, a 2-year restrictive covenant where he couldn't practice any medicine for the next 2 years in the Tri-County area. Day one, we stopped all the abortions, and to this day, from the border with Alabama, Mobile, all the way until you get to Tallahassee, Florida, there's still not one single abortion clinic here on the Panhandle.
Now, you were doing that during the period of the 25 or so years you were at the Ascension Sacred Heart operation. So you were serving in obstetrics and gynecology at the same time over there.
Correct. That was where my residency training was. And at the time when we took over the practice in the state of Florida, you could legally perform an abortion up to 24 weeks gestation. And legislatively, we brought that down to 15 and then the heartbeat. But the irony was we had babies that were surviving in our NICU after delivering at 23 weeks gestation.
Mm-hmm.
We had penalties for just disturbing preborn sea turtle eggs over on Pensacola Beach, where you could spend a year in jail and you could be fined $100,000 for disturbing sea turtles still in their shells over on Pensacola Beach. So how do we have more protection for sea turtles on the beach than we do for babies in the womb, which could survive in our NICU? So that's why we were active in trying to stand up for the patients in the womb.
And during your base of service as a gynecologist to the masses, you were over the years, you were bringing in what, over 5,000 babies?
I delivered over 5,000 babies during my career at Sacred Heart.
And what do you find most difficult in the process of dealing with a young pregnant person who is troubled with the decision of an abortion? What's going on in your world to try to mitigate that?
Well, they have lots of needs. When a woman is pregnant, a lot of times they feel alone. They might not have the dad that's involved in the pregnancy. They might be scared. They might be concerned about finances. They might be concerned about insurance. The truth is what we lead for, and the truth will set us free. So we want to show them that baby in the womb. Let them hear a beating heart. Let them know that there are lots of organizations. We have 3 pregnancy resource centers right here in our area where they can help provide housing, help provide health care, help provide training for what it means to be a mom and a dad, to support them through this. And that's a real vital part as far as the education, but also celebrating the life on the inside, where it's not just 1 line versus 2 lines on a pregnancy test. This is a baby, a new creation that if they give that baby time to grow and develop, that child will give them more joy than anything else they will experience in life.
I remember watching some of your films that you've put out and how your and son bump into each other years later and come to the point of realization that even though it was emotional and difficult for the young mother at the time, Instead of aborting, she gave up the child for a good homestead elsewhere. And it's nice to see them connecting later in life and having to share the resolution of the same woman saying, yeah, I was tempted to consider an abortion, but I didn't. How many of those women acquiesce or accommodate the thought of handing off the child versus an abortion?
We don't have enough moms who will seek that option. It's really easy just to choose the abortion option, and it's a little bit more challenging. I've had moms who say, well, I would never, ever adopt my baby to another family. But meanwhile, they're considering aborting that baby. So give that baby life. The minority of moms who are thinking of abortion will actually choose the adoption, and pregnancy resource centers and social services makes it really easy to get into that system. We have over 1.5 million couples who are looking to adopt a child, who either already have some children and want more joy in their lives, or they, for whatever reason, have not been able to conceive on their own, and they'd be amazing parents. But it is so challenging to adopt a child in the United States. It's incredibly expensive. There's so much paperwork and hoops to have to jump through. That's why so many people will look towards other countries, because it's such a challenge to adopt a child here in the United States.
That seems contrary to where we are with immigration and citizenship today, where it would be so easy to take an abandoned child of any type and bring them into your loving household. Tell me about you've kind of drifted away from general practice every day, and you've gone off on your own with a mission and a special commitment. What happened? What did you do?
Well, it was actually on a Sunday right after we had taken over the practice where I finally had my own key to the office. This is back in 1999. And even though we had seen the exam rooms, the waiting room, the office, the ultrasound room, we had never gone upstairs during our tours. And the upstairs is upstairs there's a second floor of this particular clinic, and that was where all the surgical abortions were performed. So on a Sunday after church, I actually went upstairs. I went upstairs, and there was the exam table, there was the abortion machine, all the instruments, all just lined up and waiting for the next Monday's abortions. And when I was going up the stairs, I thought, how many thousands and thousands of moms had gone up that same set of stairs with a baby on the inside, and then turned the same corner I had just turned and spent 20, 30 minutes up there, had a procedure done, an abortion, and then walked down the same set of stairs without that baby on the inside. So we did we're on the same road as Pensacola Christian College, big churches all around. Nobody was there protesting, but thousands and even tens of thousands of babies lost their lives in that clinic. So we did a presentation at my church, which was very well received, and another church. And then before we know it, we were getting requests from churches all over the country, pregnancy resource centers, interviews with Fox and Friends, and working with Focus on the Family, CareNet, Heartbeat International. And over the years, we got so busy, and that was our real focus. I mean, everything I'd wanted to accomplish professionally, I'd already checked those boxes. Delivered lots of babies, robotic surgery, laparoscopic department, vice chair, department chair. So what's next? So just 2 days ago, we made that official shift from when we were working a full-time medical practice and also running a not-for-profit, pro-life ministry. And as of 2 days ago, we are full-time ministry trying to share these truths with churches and pregnancy centers, universities, colleges all across the land to educate people on the issue of life, but also to save the lives of these patients on the inside.
And we're broadcasting, I should say, recording during July of 2025, and right during the decision-making process of the big, beautiful bill. We have a big, beautiful decision that you've made to help life progress in that way. You talk about these different exposures you're getting out in front of in different venues. Well, I'm under a relationship with Newsmax. I'm watching a profile on a guy named Dr. William Lyle, produced on Newsmax as a special episode. Well, in fact, he's just a few miles away here locally, and we get to have you as well here locally to talk about it in more detail. One of the things you were talking about that amazed me was the level of science. We're going to run a clip in a second. This clip is one of about 5 that Dr. Lyle has put together, and it's part of your organization you can talk about in a minute. But this was the surgery on heart issues inside the fetus.
Correct.
You want to explain that?
Well, science has progressed amazingly over the past 10, 20 years. Used to be if you had your gallbladder out, it was a 12-inch long incision, you're in the hospital for a week, 10 days. Now with technology, we can do it laparoscopically, and you are home that afternoon in the line at Chick-fil-A for lunch after surgery. We are now not just using ultrasound to diagnose babies in the womb, but we're actually to the point where we can operate and surgically correct these babies in the womb. The example we're going to show was performed at the Cleveland Clinic. The Cleveland Clinic had been referred a patient at about 25 weeks that had a tumor growing in the baby's heart.
Oh, right.
And the tumor is called a teratoma. And it was growing so quickly that they estimated the baby was going to die in 1 to 2 weeks if they didn't do something. So the tumor had to go. So option number 1 was to deliver the baby at 27 weeks, perform open heart surgery. But now we have a 1-pound preemie that's struggling to ventilate and breathe on the outside. So the team thought that with technology and with their skills, they had a team which could perform that surgery while the baby was on the inside.
And that is happening.
That actually performed that. It was successful. The baby's 4 years old now and doing great. So, well, we'll show the animation next, and you can see how not only can we diagnose, but we can treat and even cure babies in the womb.
How long does this run?
It's about 70 seconds.
Okay, 70 seconds, folks. Let's watch this video now. We'll be right back.
A 3-centimeter heart tumor or cardiac teratoma was diagnosed on the baby at 26 weeks gestation. It was growing so quickly that it would kill the baby in 1 to 2 weeks. Doctors made the decision that the best intervention was to treat the baby in the womb. The mother had an epidural. The mother was comfortable, and an incision was made in the skin of the mother. A second incision was made in the uterus, and the hands of the baby were then brought out so that a pediatric anesthesiologist could start an IV in the baby's hand so the baby would receive pain medicine and a paralytic. Once the baby was comfortable, the cardiothoracic team made an incision in the baby's chest. The tumor was removed. Almost immediately, the baby's heart started to pump and function normally. The incision in the chest was then closed. The hands were tucked in. The IV removed. The uterus was closed. The skin was closed. At 27 weeks gestation, a healthy baby was delivered 10 weeks later at 37 weeks gestation.
We just saw the video. Excellent production. What's your take on how this is received?
Well, it's been very well received. A lot of people know that obstetrics has changed over the years, but they don't know how much it's changed. Even primary care doctors, family practice doctors, internal medicine, they see what we are now doing and how we are treating the preborn in the womb as patients, and they're amazed. One of the significant things on that animation is that the baby actually had its own anesthesiologist, its own IV. And the anesthesiologist was caring, make sure the baby had fentanyl, a pain medication, make sure the baby didn't move around. So the baby was also receiving a paralytic called Norcuron. If I'm performing a hysterectomy, does the mom get an anesthesia team? Absolutely. Does the uterus get a second anesthesia team? No, because if the mom is comfortable, we don't have to worry about the uterus. But when it comes to performing fetal procedures, this is a completely different person, a completely different neurologic system. So when we're performing surgeries for the babies on the inside of the womb, they actually get their own anesthesiologist so that they are comfortable as well. A patient's a person no matter how small, and we have advances almost every month on something new that can be done to improve the quality of life of a baby, but also to save that baby's life.
A patient is a human no matter how small.
Absolutely.
That's the key comment I hear is the takeaway. The Today now, what's your lifestyle? Now that you've left the full-time work of obstetrics and gynecology, what is your mission daily now?
Well, I sleep better at night because I'm not getting called in to deliver a baby. But we do a lot of podcasts. We're always working on new changes of our 8-hour curriculum to provide tools for other people. But just between now and the end of the year, about another 6 months, we'll have over 40 events out of state, speaking at different pregnancy centers, churches, and universities around the country. We're also involved politically because politics is how we govern ourselves. So we're active with the National Association of Christian Lawmakers, helping them develop and sample legislation for them to take back to their states.
Now, you were in Washington, D.C. recently on just that.
Correct. We were in Washington, D.C., working with the NACL, actually attending the first meeting of the presidentially appointed Religious Liberty Commission, which is 10 different commissioners appointed by President Trump to get a feel for what issues need to be protected, what liberty and religious liberties need to be protected. How is religious liberty being threatened in the country? So there's about a dozen people, including Jewish members. Cardinal Anthony Dolan was there.
These are a group of nationally known names that have come together to. Now, this is part of Donald Trump's post-Dobbs decision.
Sure.
This is probably an inquiry from him to you, trying to figure out how to take the future of the Dobbs decision. And now that things are coming back to some sense of normalcy on how it should be looked at, it would seem that the Dobbs decision plus the welcoming at the White House with Donald Trump gives you some of a license to promote the cause easier.
Well, and this is what the people are really wanting. This is, the will of the people. They are realizing that these babies are created in the image of God. They are a unique person from that moment of conception. We see that from the Dobbs decision, with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, the issue of abortion was returned back to the states. And a lot of states already had trigger laws that made it, immediately in effect that we're going to protect our youngest patients, our youngest babies that are still in the womb. But sadly, over the 3 years since the Dobbs decision, the number of reported abortions in the United States has actually gone up. It was about 900 plus thousand.
What do you attribute that to?
100% to the abortion pill.
Okay, the abortion pill is the next question I was about to ask. So the abortion pill replaces the abortion process per se. What's the abortion pill about? How does it work?
Sure. Well, when the abortion pill was developed, it was developed to kill a baby in the womb up to 10 weeks gestation. And it will do that 98% of the time. It's not only available in doctors' offices and abortion clinics and Planned Parenthood. It's actually in a lot of states now available mail order. It's coming over illegally from India and from China as well. But it's also dangerous for babies, but it's also dangerous for the moms.
Because
of the side effects. When the abortion pill was originally approved, we were told that the serious adverse event rate was less than 0.5%. A large study, which was 865,000 women, which was 28 times as large as the sum of all the approval studies, the large 865,000 women study actually showed that it was not 0.5%. It was actually 10.93% that suffered not just a mild, not a moderate. They didn't even count those. These were severe and life-threatening reactions. So of the 865,000 women that were studied who had taken the abortion pill, 94,000 of them had a serious or life-threatening reaction.
Like a stroke, like paralysis.
There were over 40,000 women who had to go to the ER. There were over 24,000 women that had hemorrhage. There were over 22,000 women that had to have an additional surgery. There were 12,000 cases of either infection or sepsis. And then there were over 3,000 cases of women who had an ectopic or a tubal pregnancy, because the abortion pill is no way a treatment for an ectopic or tubal pregnancy. So we had over 90,000 severe or life-threatening side effects. So when you hear the abortion pill is as safe as Tylenol, no, it's not. Even when Tylenol is taken properly, the risk of having an adverse reaction is extremely, extremely rare and low. But with the abortion pill, up to 11% of those women will have a severe or life-threatening
But it's
reaction.
a loud drug.
Correct. But we have banned drugs before here in the United States. Vioxx was a very popular anti-inflammatory medication. Then we learned it was causing serious damage to the body, and it was taken off the market. DES was taken off the market. Thalidomide was taken off the market. It took 5 years of data before it was finally removed. The abortion pill, especially with its minimal restrictions and safeguards, is dangerous for women. 11% are having serious adverse reactions. That is 22 times higher than what we had originally been told. So 22% or 22 times, 22 times. Some people still don't understand the statistics. If I'm in the airport and I want to get a Snickers bar and it's labeled $1 and I scan it and it comes back $1.22. That's a 22% increase. If I take that same Snickers bar and I scan it and it comes back $22. I like Snickers, but I don't like a $22 Snickers.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get that Snickers. So the risk to women as far as severe or life-threatening reaction is 22 times higher than what women have been told. So yes, the DEA, yes, RFK have an obligation to look at the study, look at the data, look at the size of it, look at the number of women who are being harmed. And there's going to be a follow-up study of the number of women who are actually dying from the abortion pill.
The abortion pill, folks. Let's break away for a minute or two. Watch this clip on the abortion pill, and we're coming right back to you. Stay with us. Watch this.
This is the moment of conception, the precise moment when we are all created in the image of God, and the mom's body is perfectly designed for this task. One uterus, 2 fallopian tubes, 2 ovaries, all working together not only to create new life, but to support new life. A dominant follicle forms on the surface of the ovary, and an egg with all the mom's genetic material is released, picked up by the fimbria of the fallopian tube to begin the 3-day journey to the uterus. If the timing is perfect, one of the dad's 200 million sperm will unite and enter into the egg, creating a zygote. This is the moment of conception. This one cell is genetically unique from the mom, the dad, and the other 8 billion people on the planet. Cell division begins, and the journey down the fallopian tube continues to the uterus. But the baby needs support. Baby needs oxygen. Baby needs nutrition. The baby, even at this tiny phase, will implant in the lining of the uterus called the endometrium. That sends a signal to the mom that she is pregnant, and we need to not have a menstrual cycle, and we need to support this pregnancy, which at 10 weeks is 1 billion cells. That stay-on signal is from progesterone. Progesterone is the progestational steroid hormone released by the corpus luteum, the same area where the egg ovulated. The receptors are turned on to continue the pregnancy. Everything that's good about a pregnancy is because of progesterone. But say the mom is scared. Say she gets bad advice. Say she's even forced to take the abortion pill. She swallows the abortion pill. It goes down to the stomach and it dissolves. It's absorbed by the bloodstream. The progesterone turned on the signal. The abortion pill turned off the signal. And the abortion pill will actually begin to displace the progesterone on the pregnancy and on the placenta, and it begins to turn off life. Life is turned off and the placenta starts to separate and die. But what if the mom has a change of heart? What if she wants to continue this pregnancy? Well, we can reverse the effect of the abortion pill in a very simple way. We give the mom more progesterone. Progesterone is a hormone that we used in other aspects of pregnancy, and it turns on the signal and it supports life. The progesterone is dissolved in the stomach, it's absorbed into the bloodstream. The progesterone then goes to the uterus. It displaces all of the abortion pill and actually turns the signal back to on and continues this pregnancy. We have a 72-hour window where we can safely reverse the effect of the abortion pill, and it is a miracle. It is redemption. It is buying back the life of that baby. Moms are thrilled, and obviously the babies are thrilled. It is the story of being redeemed and saving life.
Wow, that was pretty significant watching the impact not only on the fetus but on the mother. Um, I, I, I think when it's broken down into simple terms and it's easy to understand, whether we get into the male female issue and the authority over the right to life or the right to choose, is somewhat muted by so much obvious evidence on what's happening here. When you were in D.C. with your group, did you discuss the abortion pill?
We did, because of the dangers of the abortion pill and the prevalence of the abortion pill. There are over 700,000 abortions performed each year in the United States with the abortion pill.
700,000.
700,000. I mean, there's 1.1 million reported abortions, but there's over 700,000 reported abortions with the abortion pill. 1.1 million. I mean, when we look at Planned Parenthood performing over 400,000 abortions each year, we actually had the world's largest diaper drive when we were in DC, where we raised enough money and we had a pro-life diaper company bring 400,000 diapers from newborn to 2 years of age, and we had them on pallets right there in front of the Capitol building. And just to show, each one of these diapers represents one baby that will not be born because of Planned Parenthood. So we were working to defund Planned Parenthood to make sure that they don't get the 700 or 800 million dollars out of my taxpayer dollars each month, that they do not provide health care. The services that they provide are primarily for abortion, and they don't do a good job at that.
This is very interesting. Folks, we're talking with Dr. William Lyle. He's a neighbor of mine here in Pensacola, Florida. He's been in obstetrics and gynecology for over 25 years, and most recently, has morphed into a Christian-based, God-fearing approach to helping women in their early stages of pregnancy deal with their pregnancy, and in a very positive way. You've got a not-for-profit group. You've got a website. Let's throw your pitch out there, who you are, how they can reach you, and how they can help.
Sure. Well, the organization that we established is a 501c3. It's called prolifedoc.org, and we have a curriculum. It's 8 hours long in length. You can order the curriculum online if you want to understand how we developed the curriculum so that the pro-life community would be better equipped and have better tools. We discuss everything from how an abortion is done, what happens at the moment of conception, fetal development, the abortion pill reversal, but then also how we treat the babies as patients on the inside while they're in the womb. We're performing not only open heart surgery like we discussed, we're doing brain surgery, spina bifida corrective surgery, laser vascular surgery, giving babies cardiac medications to correct an arrhythmia. They are our patients. A patient's a person no matter how small. So we wanted to provide these tools that you can use with your family, friends, and coworkers, not just that you are pro-life, but why you are pro-life. We wanted to teach true apologetics, and sometimes apologetics is a lost art. We don't want the abortion discussion to devolve into just whoever yells the loudest or whoever is the most intimidating wins. We want to use true science. Science was created by God, and we'll use true science. It's going to defend God's preborn. Sometimes when we look at our scientists, they've recently lost their ever-loving minds, but true science, true biology was created by God, so we'll always enforce and support godly principles. And that can be available through prolifedoc.org.
prolifedoc.org. And then they can contact you there as well?
Sure, they can email me and I can answer questions.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to come and speak at your center or at your church or at your university.
And Doctor, how widespread is the organization now?
Oh, we speak all throughout the country, but we've actually spoken recently in Ireland, in Israel. I mean, we are taking this message worldwide. We look at abortion in the United States and we mourn the 64 million babies that have lost their lives since 1973 in the United States. But there are probably over 1 billion babies worldwide which have lost their lives.
Which is a higher percentage than here in the States.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow. This sits against a backdrop of some of the demonic initiatives of fellow politicians, not locally, but worldwide, that are in tune with population control.
Correct.
I mean, are aggressively looking at population control. Refrain from using any specific names here now, but there are nationally known figures here in the United States that have come out and intentionally talked in terms of calling out and harvesting, if you will, the population. It's good people, it's bad people. Population control.
Yeah.
And it's terrible with it.
In fact, the abortion pill was created by a gifted French biochemist and endocrinologist named Etienne Emile Ballou. And he specifically developed the abortion pill as a way of achieving population control. Well, it's an attack on the image of God. Genesis 1:26 says, we're created in the image of God at that moment of conception. Just like why does somebody burn the American flag? Because the American flag is the image which represents the United States of America. The major groups, Planned Parenthood, ACLU of Florida, and all these other pro-abortion groups have a hatred for God. So abortion at its core foundation is an attack on what God said is created in his image at that moment of conception.
It's also part of why they hate Donald Trump so absolutely.
Absolutely.
He knows his unbridled conviction, his commitment towards the right to life, pro-life. And so what did you say earlier? That he had actually dedicated part of the White House?
Yeah, the office in the West Wing, the office that used to be part of the DEI leadership is gone. In its place is now Pastor Paula White, and the Religious Liberty Commission is now meeting in the West Wing of the White House. So Donald Trump is really setting a priority where DEI was evil. It was just wrong. It made no sense. It was not good for America, and it did not represent the will of the people in the United States. But now we have an office that is here to defend our religious liberty, to defend our religious freedoms, to defend the principles on which this nation was founded on, and that's right in the West Wing of the White House. A huge change.
Where do you see your cause, I should say your effort, going, not only politically from the Trump administration point of view, the political side, but also from your social service and not-for-profit side? How do you see your organization growing? Is it done with facilitation from government help, or do you see it as two separate pathways?
Our organization doesn't receive any government funding whatsoever. We just have a lot of people who support our messaging. We're really in the same position in the United States of where we were in the 1860s, where you had slavery was in Alabama, but not in New Jersey. Well, if slavery was wrong and evil in New Jersey, then slavery is wrong and evil in Alabama. So if abortion is legal in New Jersey and is banned in Alabama, it's because it's evil. So we really can't pick and choose. When it came to slavery, we divided this nation. We actually had brother against brother, father against uncle, and it was, amazingly traumatic and catastrophic. We went to war over it, a civil war. I don't want the issue of abortion to degenerate where we have to go to war over this. But if it's something is evil and wrong in one state, then something is evil and wrong in another state, because these are principles which there is good and there is evil, and it's not good or evil based on the border. So we need to unify.
If I go to www.prolifedoc.com and look for some places, can I respond to a portal on the website that allows me to get into action and get to work?
Oh, we have lots of different opportunities.
What are the opportunities?
The opportunities first, politics is local. All politics starts off locally.
Yeah.
Get involved with your local church and with your local pregnancy resource center. There are almost 4,000 pregnancy resource centers coast to coast here in the United States. I guarantee there's one right within your community. Get involved with them. See how you can volunteer and meet the needs of these moms and dads and defend the babies, but also support them financially. So our churches need to be leading this spiritual battle. This should not be a battle where we have politicians and obstetricians speaking from podiums. This is a spiritual battle, so it really needs to be our pastors, our priests, and our rabbis declaring this truth from the pulpits of their congregations, not politicians from their podiums.
I see a great merger between your cause and many of the church groups just in the Escambia County, Santa Rosa County region of the Panhandle of Florida. My words, you're talking about 500,000 people between the two counties, and I don't know, close to maybe 200 or 300 churches.
Yeah.
So we're very church oriented in this region. But I mean, there's a lot of folks that would be conduits for the mission.
Absolutely. In fact, our pastors, when our post-election data came through, it was our pastors that really defeated Amendment number 4 here in Florida.
Yeah.
Last November, Amendment number 4, even though we had gone to a heartbeat law protecting the babies in the womb at 6 weeks, we had a constitutional amendment which was put on by Planned Parenthood and the ACLU of Florida. They spent over $100 million. And so we started to fight against that. August 29th of last year, we offered a free taco luncheon where we invited pastors, priests, and rabbis. We were told by the national groups that a 1-hour lecture on a constitutional amendment on the issue of abortion, if we could get 6 or 8 pastors to show up, then we'd be blessed. We had over 70 pastors, priests, and rabbis show up for that event. And we also didn't just educate them about, the issue of life and how we treat the preborn. We let them know the truth that this was an issue of policy. This was not a party, and this was not a candidate. And they would not violate their 501c3 status in any way. I mean, their voice should not be quieted just because of a tax-free status. Once they realized they could speak freely from the pulpit and what was going on with Amendment number 4, and we needed to meet the needs of moms, dads, and these babies, we started to see the big marquees in the big churches saying, vote no on 4. The smaller churches would have all the signs out front. When it came to election day, they needed 60% in order to pass this constitutional amendment. Right at the end of when the polls were closing in the majority of Florida, they were right over 60%. They had won. But the Panhandle's in a different time zone. We start voting an hour later, so we get to vote an hour later. When Escambia County came in with their results, we were the first county to be under the 50% mark, which moved that needle a little bit closer to 60%. When Santa Rosa County, which is the county where I live and where we spoke primarily at the churches throughout the election season, when Santa Rosa came in, it was the lowest county in the entire state. 39% was a yes vote. That was enough to shift.
So that shifted the total weight.
Correct. Because we
at the 60% threshold.
So we were able to defeat Amendment number 4 by 1 percentage point. So we know they'll be back. Maybe not in 2 years, but definitely in 4 years.
They will be back. Is this the ACLU?
Sure.
But they're a not-for-profit.
Yeah.
So your not-for-profits, which are working primarily through churches, which seems to be your approach, is distinguished from a not-for-profit ACLU Democrat liberal entity that pushes a preponderance of their effort through government elected officials.
Correct.
Do you see a problem? Let me say it differently. If I was an elected official, I wouldn't have a problem you approaching me politically. You don't seem to do so as aggressively as ACL seems to do, not only with this issue, but several others. Is to me a fundamental problem of the abuse of not-for-profit organizations trying to steer public sentiment.
Well, they're trying to steer not only public sentiment, but they're trying to steer the political
the political election process.
Correct. Yeah. And so, I mean, yes, we should have 501c3 not-for-profit status, but and then when you have different PACs, it gets really confusing as far as how all that works. But really, we want to fulfill the will of the people. When it comes to the issue of life, a lot of that is education, that this is clearly not a blob of tissue in the womb. 18 days after conception, we can actually see a heart beating. From that moment of conception, we have a baby, even at that first 1-cell stage, that's genetically unique from mom, dad, and the other 8 billion people on the planet. And then that 1 cell divides into 2, then 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. And what's amazing is something called cell differentiation, where these are identical cells after they implant into the lining of the uterus. But then one cell, they all have the same blueprints. And then one cell says, you know what? I don't want to be just like you, Gene. I want to do my own thing. I'm only going to read chapter 3 of all these blueprints, and I'm going to start the entire cardiovascular system. Meanwhile, another cell says, I want to do my own thing, and that cell will start the entire neurologic system. Meanwhile, another cell is starting the entire skeletal system. I can tell you what's going to happen on day 18, what's going to happen on day 19, how these individual cells know what their job and their role is supposed to be, even though they have the exact same copies of DNA. That is a miracle from an amazing designer. That amazing designer is Almighty God, and we don't understand how these cells know what to do. We just can see what they know what to do.
So there's not 25 different sexes either then,
No,
right?
they're not. From that moment of conception is either XX or it is XY. And, my body has about 60 trillion cells.
Yeah.
About half of those cells, 30 trillion cells, are nucleated. They still have a nucleus. The red blood cells don't have a nucleus because that would just be excess baggage because their job is to carry oxygen and carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
But the other 30 trillion of my cells are all XY. So when somebody has gender dysphoria and they are identifying as a different gender, they on average will have 30 trillion cells that disagree with them. These people need help. They need support. They need psychological counseling. And there are not 30 genders. There are 2 genders. God said, let us make male and female. And that is the fact.
I'm so glad you found time to put that in there into this conversation, because I'm tired of listening to 24 different sexes and all kinds of craziness. I think the pendulum, the door is swinging back the other way, and logic, like you just described, is prevailing or will prevail. A clean, healthy birth, guided through your guidance, the afterbirth, specifically the placenta and the amniotic fluid. Where do you stand on stem cell research?
Stem cells can be very beneficial. It depends on what the source of the stem cells are. We talked about the case at UC Davis in California where they're actually doing spina bifida corrective surgery with stem cells. They started off with their research using stem cells that came from aborted babies. It didn't work. So they started to harvest mesenchymal stem cells from placentas after a baby had already been delivered.
And what's the difference?
They're just different sources. I mean, when you're using stem cells coming from aborted babies, a baby died to harvest those stem cells.
Yeah.
When you're taking stem cells which came from a placenta, the baby's already been delivered. I don't have a problem if somebody wants to eat their placenta, plant their placenta with a tree, or harvest stem cells with the parent's permission from that placenta. But using stem cells from an aborted baby, woe unto them that call good evil and evil good. That's what we're seeing when it comes to abortion, where God told us to be on the alert and look out for those who call evil good and good evil. They're saying, well, we might be able to help with grandma's Parkinson's disease, so we're going to abort babies and harvest those tissues to do that. That is calling evil good. So science is amazing. Stem cells are what are called totipotential cells, where they can become anything. So they're actually using stem cells in a trial called the CURE trial, CURE, because the doctors, especially Dr. Diana Farmer at UC Davis, really think they have a cure for spina bifida by introducing stem cells directly to the defect on a baby's spine while it is in the womb.
What do you think on that?
I think it's wonderful.
Okay, good to hear.
The majority of babies diagnosed with spina bifida, unfortunately, are aborted.
See, this conversation is not focused on the taking of life. This is post-delivery.
Yeah, and we actually are improving the quality of life of babies with spina bifida. It started actually over 25 years ago at Vanderbilt University, and they had a trial called the MOMS trial, where they were trying to surgically correct spina bifida while a baby was still in the womb. And you probably remember a picture from 25 years ago of a hand that was coming out from the womb and was grabbing the finger of the surgeon. Well, that baby's name was Samuel Armas. Now, they've been doing that study for over 25 years now, and they followed all these kids. Some of the kids had the surgery while they were in the womb. Some of them had the surgery performed after they were on the outside of the womb. And what they have found over these 25 years is that when we take the initiative and we surgically correct spina bifida in the womb and then follow them for 25 years, the kids that had the surgery in the womb can go upstairs faster, downstairs faster. They have better control of their bladders, better control of their bowels. They have fewer additional surgeries. So we are actually improving their quality of life for the rest of their lives by treating them as a patient while they are in the womb. And there's something new every single month on new advances to improve quality of life by treating these babies as patients in the womb.
So you're saying that the patient, the baby in the mother's womb, it could be treated just like the clip we ran a little earlier on heart surgery in the fetus.
Correct.
Is now in corollary to that would be the treatment of the patient, the baby, with some other ailment or malady while he or she was in the womb.
There's a whole field called maternal fetal medicine. Maternal, mom, fetal, baby medicine, which is an additional fellowship after a residency. Specifically, they're looking to have healthy moms, healthy babies. So if 12 years of education wasn't enough, you can spend another 3 years on having healthy moms and healthy babies.
But is this a stem cell issue? I mean, could it be done with the... I'm thinking stem cells for living people from the placenta and the amniotic fluid. You're talking about reintroducing a purified synthesis of a product as an application to help the baby in the fetus.
In the womb. You know, and that's what Dr. Diana Farmer and UC Davis are doing. They've now received over $40 million in grants on the CURE trial. But we are now doing laser vascular surgery. Twins. Remember the movie Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito?
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense. How can they be twins? It would make sense if you understand twin-twin transfusion syndrome. 20% of the time when twins are identical, they are sharing one placenta. And sometimes, just like when after they're delivered, they don't share it equally. So when we have a patient where one identical twin is, say, at the 95th percentile, and the other identical twin is at maybe the 4th or 5th percentile, we will send them to Texas Children's Hospital in Houston. They will then take a camera, go through the skin of the mom into the interior of the uterus. They'll map out the placenta. They'll then take a laser and literally divide that placenta in two, saying, this is your side, this is your side. They'll watch them for 10 days to make sure they're stable. They send them back to us in Pensacola. We follow them for the rest of the pregnancy, and we deliver them at term. They might have gone down in 99th percentile and 1st percentile. By the time we deliver them, they might be 60, 40, 70, 30. So we are now teaching babies how to share in the womb while mom is still pregnant.
I see.
So there's something new every month, and we'll show an animation of how that is done as well.
Wow. We're talking with Dr. William Lyle. Dr. William Lyle, obstetrics and gynecology. Had the privilege of meeting him on my campaign trail when I was running for Congress. We hit it off because of our pro-life position. He then expounded with me on some of the great things he's doing, first in medicine as a profession, and now he's drifted or morphed into the Lord's work with this concern of helping moms deliver their unborn child, instead of the abortion pill being used. Folks, Dr. William Lyle has a website, www.prolife.org, prolifedoc.org, and there you can sign up and join the partnership with us and get on board with some of the initiatives that are underway. I was going to say locally, it's statewide, it's nationwide, but it's also worldwide. He's opened up a network of contacts worldwide, and should, because the abortion issue is more prominent elsewhere in the world, not just the United States. Doctor, in our last few minutes, do you want to talk about any specifics that we may have missed or something you want to bring out?
Well, the curriculum. The curriculum is something that we work on for about a year and a half, and we really wanted to provide tools. We want the pro-life community to have tools where they can have discussions to really defend why they are pro-life. So we designed it for pastors, priests, and rabbis. We designed it for adults, but we also designed it for children. I mean, we want to share the truth of science, the truth of the scriptures. This is a spiritual battle. So chapter 8 in the curriculum, we actually had reviewed by Dr. Wayne Grudem. If you know Dr. Wayne Grudem, he wrote Systematic Theology, Ethics in the Bible, Politics in the Bible, and even was the primary editor, the chief editor of the ESV version of the Bible. And he said this is probably the most comprehensive pro-life apologetics curriculum he'd ever seen. And we wanted to make sure that the whole chapter of the scriptural basis and all the verses that we used were taken in context, because you can take anything out of context and use it to prove almost anything you want. But
the ACLU is good at that.
They are. So our source of truth is always going to be scriptures inspired by God. And sometimes when we don't know the answer to a problem in our lives, it's because we haven't gone to the scriptures, because the answers to every problem we face is right there in the scriptures. We just sometimes don't know the scriptures well enough to ascertain them and find them.
I have one regret.
What's that?
I didn't meet you 30 years earlier.
Oh.
I wish I had. Folks, I have built up a friendship with Dr. William Lyle. As I mentioned, he's obstetrics and gynecology in this area, but has now gone on this non-profit, not-for-profit cause, prolifedoc.com. Go to the website, check it out. It'll be listed on genevalentino.com, our GrassRoots TruthCast as well. And, of course, if we see you at any of the social events we're at, we'll make sure we put you in touch with Dr. Lyle as well. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. God bless you, Dean.
God bless you, too. My favorite line is, not goodbye, just see you later.
I'll see you later.
And we'll see you later for another episode of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. Please make sure you subscribe and pass the word to some friends and family. You'll also see part of this whole prolifedoc.com interview on Newsmax. It was a special feature on Newsmax recently and is stored on their website as one of their special feature reports. Thanks for joining us again today as well for another episode of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. See you soon.
Thanks for joining us for Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. Be sure to like and subscribe, and God bless America.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.